Welcome to a new era of payments. I'm going to be going over how this all connects. You're going to understand by the end of this video of what is what and why is what and how it all connects. Are you ready? Are you ready for a whole new world? Are you ready for a whole new monetary system where prosperity is gained back to the people? Are you ready? Let's go. First things first. Let's play this first. Full screen this so you can see it. And let's go.
In this video, we're going to discuss the International Accounting Standards Board, otherwise known as the IASB. So the IASB is the organization that creates international accounting standards, and it was created in 2001 to replace an organization called the International Accounting Standards Committee. The International Accounting Standards Committee had multiple issues. The first was that basically it was a bunch of people who were doing this part-time. It wasn't their full-time job to create international accounting standards, and they didn't have a very large support staff. And in some cases, they were relying on these volunteers that were helping them draft the accounting standards. And so
I don't know why it's not playing. That was a fail. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Hold on. 1 second. Here is a picture while I will figure this out. All right, we're good now. Gotta share the screen and where I go. Here we go. Let's get into it.
In this video, we're going to discuss the International Accounting Standards Board, otherwise known as the IASB. So the IASB is the organization that creates international accounting standards, and it was created in 2001 to replace an organization called the International Accounting Standards Committee. The International Accounting Standards Committee had multiple issues. The first was that basically it was a bunch of people who were doing this part-time. It wasn't their full-time job to create international accounting standards, and they didn't have a very large support staff. And in some cases, they were relying on these volunteers that were helping them draft the accounting standards. And so the IASC is out. They were replaced by the IASB that now creates the International Accounting Standards. And the IASB is based out of London, and their goal is to create a single set of global accounting standards. A set of accounting standards that could theoretically be used by all countries, all firms in the world. That's the goal. And so they issue what are called IFRS, or International Financial Standards. Okay, so they issue these IFRS, and they're based on a framework. So the IASB has a conceptual framework that they use to guide them in creating international accounting standards, and their standards tend to be more principles based. So if we were to compare them, for example, to the generally accepted accounting principles that are created in the US, so if we think of US GAAP tends to be more rules based, more complicated. It explains a lot of the exceptions to the rule and so forth when the FASB creates a new standard. But the IFRS are more based on principles and thinking about, okay, what is the principle behind this accounting standard? So it's not as complex and not as long and lengthy as the standards that are issued by the FASB in the United States. Now, are preparing their financial statements according to behind this accounting standard. So it's not as complex and not as long and lengthy as the standards that are issued by the FASB in the United States. Now, the international accounting standards that are created by the IASB, they have been adopted by more than 100 countries. And something to bear in mind is this. So the IASB, it's a standard setter. It just creates high quality accounting standards. That's what it's trying to do. But ultimately, it can't force any country to adopt those accounting standards, right? So it can't enforce, it can't go into Germany and start telling firms, hey, you haven't been doing IFRS or anything like that. It doesn't have any enforcement power. It's up to the countries to adopt IFRS and then to go and enforce and make sure that firms are preparing their financial statements according to IFRS. So IASB just creates the standards. I want to talk to you a little bit about the structure of the IASB. Typically, people refer to it, you might hear it as a three-tier structure. And when they say a three-tier structure for the IASB and International Accounting Standards, what they're referring to is this. So we've got three organizations here. We've got the IFRS Foundation Monitoring Board, right? So they are above the IFRS Foundation trustees. So they oversee the foundation trustees. And these foundation trustees, they select the board members of the IASB. Okay, so the IASB is the most important organization here because they're the one actually creating the accounting standards, right? So they're creating the IFRS. That's the IASB's role. But the IASB has about, they have anywhere between 12 to 16, depending on what year you look at. They have different number of members, but they have these board members who put together and issue these IFRS. And they have a support staff. It's a much larger support staff than they previously had when you had the International Accounting Standards Committee. There's a large support staff that supports these board members at the IASB as they go and create these IFRS. but these board members are chosen by the trustees on this IFRS foundation. Now, so this is the three-tiered structure, those three organizations. Now, the IFRS Advisory Council, they exist to provide advice and guidance in terms of putting together standards, what are accounting issues that should be addressed. They provide that advice to the board members on the IASB. So you can think of them as a support group. And there's another support group, which is the IFRS Interpretations Committee. So what the IFRS Interpretations Committee does is they'll basically look at current issues or problems in international accounting, and they'll see if they can be addressed within the existing IFRS framework. So what they're trying to do with this interpretation committee is not go out and issue new standards, but to say, okay, look, based on the IFRS that have been issued by the IASB, is there a way to settle a current issue in accounting where maybe there's diversity of practice? So two firms are accounting for the same transaction differently, and the IFRS Interpretations Committee comes in and says, okay, based on the IFRS that currently exists, is there a way that we should say that this transaction should properly be accounted for? So we don't have multiple firms accounting for the same transaction differently when that's not allowed by IFRS. So you can think about the counterpart. If you're familiar with US GAAP, you think about this as the Emerging Issues Task Force. That's what's similar to the IFRS Interpretations Committee. Okay, and then there's also an advisory council to the FASB for US GAAP. Okay, so with US GAAP, instead of having International Accounting Standards Board, you'd have FASB, that's the standard setter, and then they'd have an advisory council. And the FASB also, the members are chosen by a foundation called the Financial Accounting Foundation. So there's actually a lot of similarities in terms of the structure of the International Accounting Standards, these committees, but it's not the same, right? These are all different organizations and so forth. Now, in terms of the hierarchy, we have a hierarchy here in terms of what is the International Accounting Standards, because at the top, the most important is the IFRS. These are the statements that have been issued by the International Accounting Standards Board, right? So the International Financial Reporting Standards, that's the top, that's the most authoritative in terms of the International Accounting Standards. Now, we also have the International Accounting Standards before that were issued by the IASC. Okay, so we've got the IASC, they had issued those, and then the IFRS were issued by the IASB. So number one at the top, we've got the IFRS, and then two, we have these International Accounting Standards. So these International Accounting Standards are still in force, but anything that has been issued by IASB, that is the most authoritative. So we got IFRS, and then we've got the old International Accounting Standards issued by IASC, and then we have third, we have these interpretations. Again, the interpretations are issued by the IFRS Interpretations Committee. And again, this is to try and clarify, they're trying to clarify issues and say, hey, we've got some kind of problem here. And we think that based on the existing IFRS, here's the way firms should be accounting for that problem. Okay, so the interpretations, they're seen as authoritative. But again, at the very top, you've got the IFRS is the most authoritative for international accounting standards.
Hope that makes sense. Put this back. I hope that makes sense, guys. So basically, you have a board, and they're trying to create one standard, and that standard would be what everyone else complies by. Just to make it quick. Hold on. Exit this one out. All right. Next, we can go into share screen. Hold on. Window. Here we go. All right. Now it's for the juicy stuff. Okay. Make this bigger. Hold on. There you go. That's better. Okay. This one will go more into exactly how everything works. So there was a document by Economa. We went over it through my other stream, and on there they mentioned a national clearinghouses. So national clearinghouses basically work. So you'll have like basically you'll have a standard. So you have standardization, right, with the ISAB, right, and then through there you have those standards. Those standards connect into national clearinghouses. So the national clearinghouses will obey by those standards, and each country will have their own clearinghouse. And then whenever a transaction is facilitated within that country, it's cleared throughout the country. So basically, if you wanted, let's just say right now, how you need foreign exchange, right? You need to go to whenever you have a currency, you go to another country, you need to exchange it for their currency. What was going to happen is that through these standard boards and through a single standard is when you go through another country and you spend money, you don't, that foreign exchange portion will probably just go away, right? You'll have the option on your phone to have the digital notes, and if you go to an ATM, you can scan the QR code and get your physical cash. But that cash itself is so the cash itself for us will be issued by the Treasury. Okay, so you have cash that's issued by the Treasury, and that's backed by gold. That's where your audits and everything happens. The new notes, how we have notes today that say like hold on, I think I have a bill over here somewhere. Right here. So if you look right there, it says Federal Reserve. It's right there. It says Federal Reserve note. Can't really see it, and on the back, I'll say a debt note. These notes are to pay in debt. Doesn't say that. Says it on the dollar, but your new notes will say Treasury notes. They'll have Treasury. It won't be something that's issued by the Fed. It'll be something that's issued by the Treasury. And then that's how you get your gold into the Treasury. Okay. Next part is that each nation will do the same thing, and then that money is facilitated through the clearinghouses. So, and that goes into bancors. So bancors were the same thing by SDRs, and the only thing that doesn't make that a currency is because commercial banks don't hold it. So commercial banks will hold SDRs, and then it basically becomes a currency, which is like a liquid backed currency, which is gold that goes from one nation to another nation, and it's a stable value, and it goes onto a network. Now we're going to go into what network and how that works, and that's where Enbridge and all this other stuff comes into play. Let's get into it.
There's a growing momentum towards central bank digital currencies, with over 100 countries exploring a CBDC, representing over 95% of global GDP. But with so many central banks developing their own digital currencies based on different technologies, standards, and protocols, there's a real risk that the CBDC ecosystem becomes fragmented. If left unaddressed, this could lead to unconnected digital islands springing up around the world.
So that was a problem. Now you're going to the solution. So you see right here, this is from Ripple. So Ripple, the global provider of financial settlement solutions. They have strategic partnerships to grow their team internationally, which included new investors, Standard Charter, of Accenture, SBC, SCB, Siam Commercial, SBI, and you go down here, you have Santander and CME Group. So that's how everything connects. And this one was, if you see right here, is by Accenture. We know about that connection. This talks more about the ecosystem. Oh, hold on, I missed that part. Right here, so you have strategic alliance with the leading blockchain startups such as Ripple. That's right on the Accenture document. And this is how it works. So they'll use a whole bunch of networks. So that's where Enbridge comes in, where you have Hyperledger, you have Corda, you have Corium, and then you have Ripple's RT the Ripple service, and then all that is built upon over Ledger. So when people are building these things, they just put in each API into whatever they're trying to build, and then that's how they deploy their apps. And so this is how the Corda one works. This is Corium, so this is how the Corium one works. And this one is the Hyperledger Fabric. So what you have here happening is that you have Quant, which is basically dealing with the financial stuff, right? And it connects all that kind of stuff. And then you have Constellation, which deals with network security and any kind of IoT devices that are going to connect any kind of anything will be secured through that. So this is exactly how they're solving cybercrime, because it's a huge problem with industries. They spend more money on that than they do anything else. So this is their solution to it. Constellation is part of ISAC consortium. So basically, you have like UK, EU, United States, DoD, Space Force, Starlink. You have all these companies that are under this, and for example, like if Starlink that's teamed up with T-Mobile, and how they'll basically have satellites. So you'll have anyone can make a payment anywhere, and then we'll go more into the off-chain stuff. I'll go into that later. But even if, let's just say you're on a plane and you have to put your phone into airplane mode, you'll still be able to make a payment. And then as soon as your phone gets data again, it'll update the ledger with that payment transaction.
The global economy has become more integrated, but cross-border payments have struggled to keep pace. International payments are typically made through a global network of correspondent banks. While critical to enable cross-border payments, they have also introduced pain points and friction. Each correspondent bank in the chain requires time to process the payment, repeating similar checks at each step. This results in high transaction costs, slow payments, and opaque transactions to the end users. Additionally, correspondent banks are paring back their networks, leading to a form of country financial exclusion. This creates a situation where some countries no longer have first-tier access to the global financial system. The Bank for International Settlements Innovation Hub is exploring solutions for overcoming these limitations. The aim is to allow cross-border payments to be immediate, cheap, widely accessible, and settled in a secure medium. A possible solution would be a multiple central bank digital currency platform, or MCBDC. That is a technical platform that directly connects digital central bank money. Building on earlier CBDC prototypes, the BIS Innovation Hub and the 4 participating central banks joined forces to bring to life.
So the MCBD, basically what it's using is for it's the chain of which the national clearinghouses are operating on using and operating on top of and using.
Such a multi-CBDC.
And also remember that you can have a Ripple a validator. You can have a Ripple validator on Quant. So it doesn't. So it all connects at the end of the day.
Platform named Mbridge, which stands for Multiple CBDC Bridge. By providing a shared platform on which participants can conduct peer-to-peer payments directly across jurisdictions using safe local central bank money, Mbridge can tackle the pain points of international payments, advance cross-border settlement in digital central bank money, and support diversification of currencies in cross-border transactions. Over the past year, the project team has moved Mbridge from a prototype to a pilot phase. From August 15th to September 23rd, a pilot focused on payments for international trade successfully took place on the Mbridge platform. This was the largest multi-CBDC pilot involving real value cross-border transactions among commercial banks from 4 different jurisdictions. 4 central banks and 5 commercial.
Now, what do you notice the common denominator here? It's HSBC, right, across the board. So HSBC was the one that's tokenizing gold, and I just so happened to connect to Ripple, just saying.
Commercial banks from each jurisdiction, for a total of 24 participants, took part in the pilot, with the BIS Innovation Hub acting as a central coordinator. The pilot consisted of 3 basic transaction types. First, issuance and redemption of CBDC between central banks and their domestic commercial banks. Second, simple one-way cross-border payments between commercial banks. And third, cross-border atomic payment versus payment for foreign exchange between commercial banks. The pilot was conducted in 3 phases, with each phase seeing an addition of a new jurisdiction. A total of $12.1 million in all 4 CBDCs was issued onto the platform. This facilitated more than $22 million in cross-border payments and FX transactions made through over 160 transactions.
So each one of these is their national clearinghouse, and that's exactly how it works. So if you make a payment in UAE, doesn't matter what you use, it'll clear it in whatever currency that's needed. So this basically is a solution to get rid of Nostra Vostros.
The pilot demonstrated the platform's ability to transact real value payments in a real-world setting. It enabled peer-to-peer instant exchange of CBDCs to improve cross-border payment speed, efficiency, and reduce settlement risk, thereby confirming its potential. Equipped with the learnings from the pilot, the Enbridge project will continue towards a production-ready platform for cross-border payments.
Parvai censure.
At the BIS, we're doing our part, not least through our innovation.
This is the most recent Finternet, and they actually go into everything that you want. So you'll understand how things that were published and released, like from 2012 to today, how they're all coming together.
Hubs. There, in conjunction with our partner central banks, we're pushing the envelope of exploring what is possible with innovative financial technologies. There is plenty of space for others to join in. I truly believe that now is the time for a Neil Armstrong moment. That small first step that represents a giant leap for the financial system.
Giant leap.
We know where we need to go. We have the tools to get there. Now it's time to take the first steps. Let me now hand over the floor to Nandan, who will tell us how this vision could be landed in real life.
Let's go. That guy works at Infosys.
Change is the biggest disruptor. And digitization is the biggest change ever.
So you've seen how everything connects?
In these times of digital disruption, businesses can either find opportunities to thrive in the new normal and perish when challenged by digital natives. When you are ready to advance to your next, you can count on Infosys to power your core with AI. Bring in digital agility at the scale your customers demand. And enrich your business with our global yet local talent ecosystem. Your journey to digital will have so many next. Come, navigate your next.
So this is right here. So you see Federal Bank in India partnered with the blockchain payments company Ripple to facilitate cross-border payments. This is to inform the Federal Bank has entered into a partnership with Ripple Inc., a blockchain-supported global remittance company for cross-border remittance through its network. The announcement said, powered by blockchain-enabled solutions, the Ripple platform ensures cross-border transactions are much safer and secure. Again, security issues is a big thing. As a regulator, the RBI also has to explore the new emerging areas to check what can be adopted and what can't. Also see this from 2018. Also in India, In May 2018, Infosys formed a blockchain with 7 banks. Is known as India Trade Connect. The banks include these banks, and it said Infosys stated that the network is being used by the banks to run a successful pilot of the Finacle Trade Connect, a blockchain technology-based solution developed specifically to address the trade finance process and requirements of banks.
Thank you.
And then this is straight from Infosys. It says, interestingly, this was a podcast, and this is just the transcript from the podcast. It's interestingly, once the controversial crypto usage separate from the huge possibilities that blockchain has, like blockchain as a technology has to offer, governments too started to look into the favorable, and there have been several governments that recognize the value of blockchain and begin to exploring options, including those of the United States, France, Korea, UAE, India, and others. And down here it says, to begin with, the enterprises need to understand the risk and disruption of, and develop a disruption radar. They need to understand the areas where blockchain initiatives are currently more focused and making rapid progress. For instance, blockchain-powered payment systems like Ripple are providing disruptive for central banks controlled payment systems like ACH and Fedwire. Bam.
Thank you, Augustine, and for setting the stage for this. I'll try to keep it as non-technical as possible. Also, thank you, Adam, for hosting us. And Adam, of course, didn't mention that I also served on the board of Peterson many moons.
So you see how this is all connecting? This is that guy right here, co-founder and chairman of Infosys. And he's the one who came up with the with the Bank of International Settlement, came up with the Finternet.
Back.
Welcome to come back.
So I'll just walk you through the idea of the Finternet, the financial internet, and later on I'll explain why we think of it as the financial internet, which we think is really about empowering individuals and businesses at the center of the financial life. Now, just to set a few things, in India, for example, India was the most unbanked country, and we managed to accelerate banking penetration and did financial inclusion in 9 years. What would have taken for?
See, so now they're talking about all the pilot programs. Again, if you watch my last stream, I was explaining how all this started in 2007, 2008. They had 10 years to test, which is 2019, 2018, 2019, and then 2020 hit. And then from 2020, we all know how that went, and now we're in the ending of that phase. So there's phases to it, and that's basically what's going on.
47 years by traditional means.
And that was very important. So whatever it took, it says in 2019, financial inclusion, and whatever happened in 47 years took 9 years. So think about that. Think about how fast it's happening. This is why Ray Dalio says in the next 5 years, the world will look completely different, because it will.
9 years. What would have taken 47 years by traditional means. Built a KYC system that does 16 billion transactions to open bank accounts and mobile phones, brought down the costs. Today, 250 million people have their digital records in their phones, in their lockers. We have a payment system which does 13 billion transactions a month, and Roberto has done a fantastic job in Brazil with Pix, which has also transformed Brazilian payments. And we have always thought about technology as requiring it to be universal. In other words, technology should be for people, rich people who have smartphones, people who have feature phones, people who don't have phones. So everything we do should be done with a universality in mind.
Okay, so it's all about banking the unbanked and so more people have cell phones than they do have bank accounts. And that's exactly what this is saying. It's saying people who have a featured phone, so like a smartphone or an old Nokia phone or whatever, everyone will be able to be on the system. No one is going to be excluded anymore.
So that's been the broad thinking that we've had historically. And we have seen, whether it's in India or Brazil or anywhere else, that if there's strong regulatory push, if there is political will, if there's the right technology, we can make things happen. So it's with that background of having been participating in making things happen.
See, regulation is king. Without regulation, nothing is happening.
That we have done this paper. So this paper is not just a theoretical paper, it's actually a plan of action, a call for action, and we look forward to working with all of you on that. Now, what is it about the financial internet? What are we trying to do? First, we are trying to think of a financial system which puts the user at the center of it. In other words, whether it's an individual or a business, whether it's retail or wholesale, the financial system should be designed with the user in mind. And often that doesn't happen. Second, we want to create a unified approach to the financial system. In other words, this should work in all countries. This should work in all sectors. This should work for all asset classes. It could be bonds, it could be cash, it could be shares, it could be mutual funds,
All the money.
ETFs, gold.
All the money.
I know I can say this in front of central bank because it could be Bitcoin.
The
You know,
corn.
Ripple doesn't require you to ever use XRP, even in a trade. I mean, the cool thing here is that anybody in the world now using Ripple can put a bid ask on anything of value from any issuer. So for example, somebody could decide, I'm going to make a market between United Airline miles, if, once United Airline miles are on Ripple, I hope they will be someday, to Brazilian real. You could go directly. You don't actually have to go through XRP. But what we believe will happen is that most market makers, in filling out the world of exchanging value from anything of value, again, currencies, merchant reward points, airline miles, gold, silver, anything that you define as value, most people will actually, most market makers will use XRP, because as a currency without a counterparty, it is a completely unique thing in the protocol, just like Bitcoin is completely unique. So again, our view of why math-based currencies are so valuable isn't necessarily that they replace existing currencies, it's just that they have a very unique feature in that they have no counterparty. So the whole world, the world only has to think about one thing when it comes to Bitcoin or Ripple, is the price in any microsecond in time. You never have to think about the counterparty risks. It turns out that is a completely unique thing that's never existed before. So why is that important? Let's say we use the example of a farmer in Nepal.
And what is he describing right now? He's describing a national, a global currency, right? Which is what? The Bancor or the SDR. And the only thing that differs an SDR today is that the commercial banks don't hold it. But as soon as commercial banks hold it, well, the whole damn everything changes.
Wanting to buy farming equipment from a supplier in Kenya, let's say. If you didn't have the math-based currency, even in an internet for value, you'd probably have to go Nepalese rupee to Indian rupee to British pounds to Kenyan shilling. That's a lot of hops.
Right, and you're going to lose a good amount of money on each hop.
You lose value on every hop, right? Because you're involving currencies with counterparties, things of value with counterparty. It'd be much better to go Nepalese rupee to XRP.
See, so that's showing you exactly what's going on here. This is from Infosys themselves. In 2018, this is from Infosys. It says banks are verified partners with peer network that uses private blockchain solutions with private keys. So exactly what we're talking about. You have your national clearinghouses. Each member of this blockchain platform can send funds and information directly to another member. Open market principles guarantee low exchange rate fees. Information and backend data is saved and integrated into each block of transaction. Ripple Transaction Protocol, RTXP, can serve as a central protocol allows members to conduct cross-currency transactions in 3 to 10 seconds. That right there from Infosys is describing a Bancor, describing an SDR, describing exactly what we've been saying. Company A, USA, needs to make a payment to Company B, Japan. Company A requests its Bank A, USA, to send US dollars to Company B. Bank A directly executes the fund transfer to Bank D via the blockchain protocol. Bank B has an account with Bank D and receives the funds. So it doesn't matter what currency is what. It'll because of the RTP protocol, it'll just convert it and settle it in seconds. So it doesn't matter. And that's the cool thing about all of this.
Through a market maker, and then there's some other market maker that has made a market between Kenyan shilling and XRP. Now, Nepal and Kenya are one hop away. You're actually one hop away from airline miles, and everything is one hop away. That's why a math-based currency, we think, is really unique and really has value.
Anyway, so the point is that it is essentially neutral or agnostic to the asset classes. It can also be done over time. This is not a big bang approach where we get up in the morning when we are in this beautiful new world. This could take years to roll out. Different countries, based on their appetite for change, will do it differently.
So remember the timeline. You have one phase and then you have the implementing phase. So you're going to have, if you look at CBR Plus on Swift, they tell you that 2024, and again with the Citibank documents, go back and watch all the other streams that I did. With the Citibank documents, it says that you have April right now, which we're in, which is spring, and then from April to July, which is on the module loop paper. So that is your regulation phase, and then from July to November would be all geopolitical. So everything will go on with whatever's happening. That'll be settled, and then from November to March, which is the FedNow implementation date, will be the rollout of this. And then remember what Judy said about 2026 about gold and stuff. So we're going to have 25 for everyone to get on board. And then probably within that year, maybe we'll see the Federal Reserve go away. Maybe we won't, but there'll be drastic changes within that year. So expect this financial ruin to go on until next year, most likely. And then from 2006, if you're not in by the end of 2005 and going into 2006, then it's like you have to be, because if you're not within regulations, you can't operate, and that's basically what he's saying.
Sectors will do it differently. The design that we have proposed is completely asynchronous, which allows different people to come onto this thinking at different times, which is the way it should be. And maybe over a few years, it'll all happen. And a lot of focus is how do we design from the beginning to reduce loss, fraud, and actions of bad actors, which is a common phenomenon today in the financial sector. Now, this is also meant for different kinds of asset. They could be assets that users have their entire control over, which are bilateral transactions between two buyers and sellers, where there's no regulation or there's no other, you're buying and selling something that you have, like an NFT or something, or a personal car or something like that. Then you have assets that are attested by different kinds of attestations, verifiers, guarantors, and so on. Then you have registered assets, assets like cars that are registered in the vehicles database, or land, which is a land titling database. And then finally, you have regulated assets. This could be money, securities, and so on. The architecture we are proposing covers all these types of assets, whether they are user assets that are bilateral OTC kind of assets, or whether they are highly regulated assets. So the same architecture is for all of them. Now this, if there's one slide I want you to think about, is this slide. I know it looks a little forbidding and intimidating, but this slide captures the essence of what we are doing. And if you really want to...
So if you look right here, you see I have on the bottom main right here, you have law, regulations, rules, and governance norms. That's where your IABS standard will be right there. Then you have digital infrastructure. So you basically, so you have your regulations right there, and then like your ISOs and 307s and all that stuff being under the standard bodies. And then you have your infrastructure. So you have all these different chains, for example, like Quant and Constellation and other things like that. And then that goes into, they all blend in within a unified ledger and unified ledger protocol. So all of this unified ledger and protocols is basically a program that is built on Overledger, and that is plug in each API, and which allows you to enable all these things.
Take this forward. I would request you take a copy of this and put it on a pillow, and you'll absorb what is going on here. Let's speak from here. So what are we showing here? What we're showing here is how does this approach of tokenization fit into the real world. In the real world, we have all kinds of players. We have central banks, commercial banks. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Central banks, commercial banks, and so on. You have different kind of value-added players who help you to, like people who give you land titling or people who give you insurance and so on. You have users and you have applications. Now, all this is already in the real world. You have these institutions, you have these other guys who do verification, you have new kinds of applications. And then you have existing infrastructure, which is either digital in nature, which provides identity or signatures and so on, as well as all the laws and regulations that govern us. So all this is already there.
It's all
But
there.
we have an inefficient system, which is slow, which is costly, which excludes people. So what we have done is essentially airdrop. Like an Apple phone does airdrop. We have airdropped a high performance token based transaction engine in the middle of this. So it's a very elegant, minimal way of doing transformation.
See, so you have your interledgers and your unified ledgers that are working together. So it's literally anything to anything of value. Also think of XLR. XLR is working. XLR allows you to do payments with your NFTs too. So that's pretty cool.
Which is you keep all this stuff, but insert this little thing in the middle. It's like taking an old car and putting a new racing engine in it. Let's think about it like that. That's what we're doing here. Now, what is that? What is that engine? That engine is what Augustine talked about, is a ledger. And ledgers and other technologies have enabled us to become more efficient and make immutable transactions, and a number of technical benefits of ledgers. We have done that, but as Augustine mentioned, we don't want it to be only one ledger. This is not Lord of the Rings. This is about having multiple ledgers with multiple providers. So the architecture provides for that. It also keeps a ledger of all kinds of assets, whether it's equities, deposits, real estate, bank money, whatever it is. So you have multiple ledgers, each of which can keep multiple types of tokenized assets. And these ledgers are maintained as accounts for users. This is where the user centricity comes. So the user opens an account in a ledger of his choice. It's no different from me opening an email account with Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo. And I keep my different assets tokenized in my account in my ledger. So far, so good?
Does that make sense?
Now, what happens?
So basically, like how if someone right now has Gmail, or if someone has iCloud or whatever, and they're sending emails to each other, but they're receiving their emails, right? There's a protocol in between that facilitates that, and that's exactly what this is. Where it doesn't matter what nation you're from or what bank you're using or whatever, everyone that goes into again the regulatory body. So everyone is complying with one regulation, and they're all on the same standards, and they're able to send money, doesn't matter where it's from, to each other, and it's all interconnected.
Is if I'm a user, I can take a deposit from the bank, or I can take a mutual fund or an ETF from my asset management company and ask them to tokenize it and give it to me. And then I will keep it in my account, and my account will have a mix of assets. What this does is essentially unlocks the closed system here and creates a marketable set of tokens, which can then be traded among themselves. And it's possible that I have two users who are on two different ledgers. We can just sell to each other, transfer the asset to each other, similar to me sending an email from my Gmail account to your Hotmail account.
See?
And this will then essentially create this real-time, high-performance engine for transactions, but without changing any of the rules of society. And that's the power of this, that we are using the value of cryptography, the value of real-time transactions, 24/7 operations, all that, but within a regulatory framework which allows all the laws to be enabled.
So they need regulation. Without regulation, nothing's going to operate. But what they're doing is they're just upgrading the framework of the system itself.
Now, how do you build applications? The applications will be built by various providers, companies, banks, whoever it is. So that is where the innovation will come. So any innovator can build an application at that layer for any user and use this infrastructure. So this will lead to an explosion of innovation as different actors, market actors, regulated, unregulated players, all deliver applications for different users. So you're creating a market on top of an existing system by inserting a high performance tokenized based transaction engine in the middle of it. I mean, that's simplistically what it is. And this is our philosophy, that to make these things work, you have to provide public rails, but private innovation. And this is essentially providing public rails, which the public sector will bring in, but allow private innovation to flourish. And this is how we're going to reach everybody in the world. Now, very important.
You guys understand what that means? It's because blockchain itself inherently natively is open sourced. That's the public part, but you can also have private chains or have your own private business or whatever, and that works on that way. For example, how Ripple has the Ripple protocol, and then but they also utilize the XRP ledger. Same thing with Stronghold. Same thing with everyone else.
Important part of this is this system continues in the current world. So this is not going to happen overnight, right? So some players may come today, some may come tomorrow, some banks may come today, some asset managers may come tomorrow. They all have ways of converting into this. And every token is a full representation of that financial product. In other words, along with the actual bond or what money or whatever it is, it has all the attributes that define that, all the metadata, all the, if it's a, if there's an insurance policy, a land title, those certification details. It's a self-contained, self-described token which can be sold very simply. And the reason why we use the word financial internet is because that's exactly how the internet works. The internet consists a set of packets, packets which have addresses which tell the packet where to go. And then the packet finds its way to the destination. What we have here are much more sophisticated financial packets or tokens, which have all the attributes inside them, so they're very free to move around. And that's why it's like the internet, but for financial products. It's much more complex than data in the internet, but it's the same principle. And we think this can be done. And these guys are, we call them token managers, will issue the tokens which the users will get access to. And they issue, manage, and synchronize the token with what's here. So when the token is, say, sold, then the new data comes into this. So essentially, the real world continues to have the latest status of these transactions, but the actual transactional efficiency is coming from the tokens. And as I said, the user opens an account in any ledger and gets issued these tokens. So, and I can keep any number of tokens in a ledger. And then we have that layer of applications which allow people to build all kinds of applications, and all that will be standardized so that new builders of applications can build on top. Something like how
See, standardized. So you have regulation plus standardization equals decentralization.
Internet has enabled so many private companies to build applications. Is that clear? Thank you. I mean, that's why I said you should keep this picture in your... So this is the whole thing. This describes how it works. It's an elegant solution with many...
Okay, so you have individuals and businesses can interact with the FinTernet using any application, large opportunity for entrepreneurs. So right there, so it's a level playing field. Users open an account with any unified ledger. Tokens are programmable digital representation and are issued into that account. So your clean houses, and then you have user-controlled as tested or regulated assets can be tokenized or digitized by token managers. So your custodians like Metaco and HSBC and Accenture and like all those people, Volante and stuff like that.
Minimal invasive surgery. We're not trying to uproot the whole system. We're not trying to demolish the old system. We're taking an existing infrastructure of laws, regulations, and learnings we have about how society should be run, But inside that, we're inserting a high-performance transaction capability. And we're also separating out that we have will be an open infrastructure. Just like today, when you use the internet, you use SMTP, you don't care about it. You know that it works. So this will be like that. It'll use the latest trends in crypto.
Did you hear what he said? Just like you use the message protocol, you don't even know that you're using it, but you're using it. It's going to be the same thing. So right now, I'm over here showing you this video, and we have people watching the video. We're the only ones that know about this. But anyone else besides, that's whatever, paying attention to whatever's going on in the world, they have no clue that this is taking place in the background. All they're going to know is that whenever they use a service, it'll be faster, it'll be cheaper, they'll have more options, but they'll have no clue that this is actually happening in the background.
Cryptography, the latest trends in AI, all that will be there as open infrastructure. So what this is actually is nothing but a bunch of APIs. So there are programming interfaces where how do you unload and offload data from these token managers? A bunch of protocols for how two ledgers should talk to each other, which we call as the unified interledger protocol, and a set of APIs which allow you to talk to all these third-party services. So it's really a bunch of programming interfaces and a bunch of data descriptions of what a token looks like. And you can have many tokens of many asset classes, and it could vary. I mean, one country's real estate token may look different from another country's, no big deal. So we're not trying to force anyone to follow this thing. But just like the internet, you have certain protocols that you follow. There'll be some protocols, but otherwise you have full flexibility in defining how these things work. And by layering like this, the society and the governance can be done through a layer of regulation institutions. The technology can keep innovating. So the technology can get better and better. The ledgers can get better. The ledgers can become faster. New ledgers may come. That's independent of the rules of business that you have at the higher level. And of course, users will have a lot of freedom to do things. So we think this can have an impact on wealth building, access to credit, insurance, new asset quality, new asset categories, cross-border payments, and so on. So all of them are now going to benefit from this infrastructure. And it allows market actors to get into new markets. Because if I want to now start lending in some other market, I can just take advantage of this. So actually, it will lead to market expansion, even as it leads to better benefits for users. We believe that this can.
This is from their paper. So it says the FinTernet is a framework for interconnecting multiple financial ecosystems, seamless integration across various financial services, enhancing accessibility and efficiency. The proposed architecture emphasizes user-centric unification across asset categories, sectors, and geographies, with the focus on ensuring that financial services ecosystem is adaptable to the needs of diverse international user base for individuals and businesses, retail and wholesale. So key to this architecture is interoperability. Again, interoperability is key. ILP and ILP, TC307, Hyperledger and all that stuff. That's interoperability. Corda and Corium, those are two other ones. Across systems and scalability. The FinTernet model advocates for collaborative efforts between public and private sectors to establish a universal digital infrastructure that promotes financial inclusivity and empowerment and enables a new set of exponential innovations as seen during the internet era. So we're right now in the so think about the dot-com bubble and like the beginning of social media and all that stuff. A lot of people that probably don't even remember that stuff, but back in the day, we had Axe Jeeves. Axe Jeeves went away, and now we have Google. So does anyone even know what Axe Jeeves was? No one knows. Before we had Aries, and after Aries, now we have Spotify. Does anyone know what Aries was? No. We had Yahoo Messenger and Hotmail Messenger. That was a hot thing. But now we have social media platforms. Does anyone even remember what that was? No. It's the same thing that's going to happen in the future, is that technologies today, what might seem great today, will probably fade away, and things that are regulated and actually have use cases and utility will be the ones that will be adopted.
Transform the lives of everybody on the planet. And you have already seen the document which has been put out. I hope you read it already. It really lays the framework. It's issued by Augustine and myself, BIS. But we have issued a second document, which is the technical.
Here's another one from the document. It says, to fully harness the potential of the fintech and ensure the effective integration across various sectors, it is essential to engage in extensive prototyping and experimentation for the protocol specifications and standards. So this sentence right here is essential to engage in prototyping. That's what happened for the past 10 years. Again, when everything went down in 07, 08, they had 10 years to start testing. Bitcoin came out 09, and that was the testing phase, Ethereum and all that stuff. And they started building and prototyping. And then now we're in the phase of regulation and implementation. This is 2024. It says, as we stand on the brink of a monumental shift, the action is clear. This is not just an economic imperative, but a moral one. Where accelerating the pace of change and innovation through tokenization becomes our shared mission for betterment of all humanity.
Architecture behind this. And that is also online. And I would welcome you to read that document.
There's another one from them. So this is about fraud. So fraud is a big thing. Cybersecurity again. Identifiability and traceability. The unified ledger enhances the ability to identify and trace transactions and user activities. So user activities, think about Temenos, how Temenos made a whole video talking about how you'll have a personal accountant, basically, and a financial advisor that would help you with your finances. So a lot of people thought it was dystopian, but it's actually a utopian way to help people manage their money better. Making it significantly harder for impersonators to gain unauthorized access. So, for example, you have a bunch of phishing scams with text messages and a whole bunch of email phishing scams, and people are clicking links and getting hacked or whatever. But now, if someone were to do that, if they're not using your device, because it's going to be device verified, they won't even. It's not even going to work. And again, it'll let you know that this is a fraud or whatever, and it protects everybody. Enabled for regulatory rules into code. So automating compliance through smart contracts, AML, KYC and AML, programmed into the system, ensuring that all users meet strict criteria before being granted access. See, strict criteria before even granted access. Exactly what I just said.
If you're interested or want to be masochistic, but that describes how this technology will work, to show you that it's real and not just vaporware.
So this is another one from Infosys from that 2018 document. It says the Royal Bank of Scotland started their pilot program with Ripple. That was in 2018. And then German Bank started with Ripple too.
And this is the QR code of that document. So I believe you can now take your phone and look at it, and the QR code picks it up. So if you want to take your phones and just take this. So this is the second document. Okay, the first document is the business document.
There's another one that goes more into it. So Bank A, Bank B, so clearing member house. See, so you have your clearing houses. So clearinghouse. It goes into the clearinghouse, and that's where goes back into the document about Economica and how they're saying how this could be the solution.
The second document is the technical document. Together, this pair of documents essentially lay out the strategy. It's doable.
Here's another one. So it says this is for 2024. It's poised to be a pivotal year that has potential to reshape the financial industry, which exactly what we're going through. Institutions' adoption of cryptocurrency infrastructure is set to become business as usual, BAU, in 2024, which we're in right now. And that goes back to the into the Citibank, Module Loop, and all those and clearinghouse documentations talking about April to July.
It's doable in a few years. It requires political commitment, will, central bank governors taking it up, business.
And this is what I keep referring to. It says, how can multilateral, this was released in 1948. It says, how can multilateral clearing be achieved without application of force? Exactly what this guy was talking about. The solution here offered might be called a pool clearing, which we're showing you. It works as follow. Every country sets up an independent agency called a National Clearing Fund. The various clearing the various national clearing funds agree among themselves as the rate of exchange by which each currency to be related to all other currencies. So level playing field again. Importer of goods and services make all payments in their own national currency into their own national clearing fund. As soon as a fund has received payment, it informs the national clearing fund of the exporter that the payment has been received, whereupon the national clearing fund in the exporter's country makes the payment to the exporter. Each national clearing fund thus receives and disperses only national currency. Only national currency. Again, it receives such currency from the home importer and distributes it to the home exporter. So exactly what you're watching with the unified ledger and the FinTernet.
Actors taking it up, but absolutely doable, and it can be transformational.
On the timeline, it was announced in the budget that it will be introduced this year. It will be introduced this year. Various technologies.
So you see, so these are digital rupees. So these are actual digital notes, but they're issued by the Reserve Bank of India. And so what you'll have is you'll have set notes of digital currencies and set notes of physical currencies.
Technologies will be used. The only thing I would like to emphasize that the process of introduction would be gradual so that there is no disruption in the banking system or the financial system.
So hold on.
Gradual so that there is no disruption in the banking system or the financial system.
So this is a physical note, and then this is the digital note, and they'll both be the same. So for example, you'll be able to exchange. You'll be able to go to an ATM, scan a QR code, and receive physical currency, even though it's digitally on your wallet. And vice versa, you'll be able to take your digital or physical notes into the bank and receive that amount in gold.
Today's global financial system is more complex than ever before. Yet as the world's economies grow, the infrastructure they rely on needs to evolve. Every nation has its own independent monetary policy and regulatory standards. But with varying system access and legacy technology, the world's financial infrastructure can seem overwhelming. At Ripple, we enable governments and central banks around the world to create new, high-performance financial infrastructures built on blockchain technology. More specifically, we help governments build and launch central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. They are national currencies powered by modern technology that is secure, centralized, and scalable. And these CBDCs will enable central banks to implement their monetary policies in more efficient and effective ways. The Ripple team brings a wealth of expertise to every new CBDC solution, working with hundreds of financial institutions, policymakers, and regulators. Our solutions facilitate billions of dollars in cross-border payments around the globe. Ripple's CBDC solution is based upon one of the most reliable, sustainable, and open-source blockchain protocols, the XRP Ledger, XRPL. The XRP Ledger technology is perfect for CBDC blockchain applications. It's fast, with transactions complete in 2 to 3 seconds. It's easily customizable and programmable. It's reliable, having closed over 72 million ledgers since 2012. The ledger's native functionality for issuing digital currencies also reduces the need for bespoke programming and reduces risk. Finally, the technology is sustainable as one of the first carbon-neutral blockchains. Each pilot is completely customizable and shaped to the needs of the central bank by an expert team. Here's how it works. Each nation's CBDC is hosted on a private version of the XRP ledger. Access by participants is granted by the administrator and fully secure. Using Ripple's CBDC solution, the central bank has full control over supply, allowing them to increase supply or redeem it. And through a standard API and multiple SDKs, integration into existing systems is simplified and suitable for traditional and non-traditional participants. Additionally, the central bank can issue other assets and allow participants like commercial banks to do so. The central bank can also authorize who holds the currency on the ledger, whether that's held directly by consumers or through commercial banks. Transactions typically settle in seconds compared to days, making CBDCs suitable for use cases like retail point of sale. This can open the door for real-time salary payments and collection of tax at point of sale, which gets funds to an institution or a consumer faster while eliminating debt risks. CBDC data is fully controlled and auditable by a central bank, allowing for its analysis in support of monetary policy. And the data maintains transaction privacy while still allowing for regulators to monitor for criminal activities. Finally, a Ripple-designed CBDC can provide a means to bridge disparate currencies through XRP. Its inherent interoperability can allow for connection.
Get it? So basically you have clearinghouses. So each of these are clearinghouses, and then they're using XRP to convert each one. But they're also using Interledger as well. So Interledger is so these ones are Interledger, and there's Whiteline, that's XRP. I hope that makes sense.
With other central bank ledgers for efficient cross-asset and cross-border transactions. This can be done with cross-issuance, using XRP as a bridge currency or via cross-ledger communication protocols. This reduces the risk that institutions are forced to accept when transacting across multiple networks or currencies in the current system. The creation of a CBDC provides powerful benefits for the economy and people of an adopting central bank. It's technology that places trust in digital money in the hands of a central bank that can guarantee accessibility to funds and the resulting services, as is the case with cash today. The result? An improved foundation for global financial development where businesses, commercial banks, and ultimately people can unlock new economic potential. Work with Ripple to build a custom pilot.
The standard gives us, richer data and structured data, and it's a combination of these two elements really that is important, right? Rich data just as a blob is not helpful, so it has to be structured, and that really is the benefit of the standard. We're really looking for material improvements in operating efficiencies. So getting a payment instruction from a client through the door and being able at the point of initiation already to do a number of validations to make sure that that transaction is actually that it's livable, right? That it can actually be transmitted all the way through its life cycle to the end point, and that it doesn't have to, that it has all the parties it needs, so that we have all of the right identifiers, that we have business purpose codes that we can validate upfront. If it goes into particular jurisdictions that has certain currency controls, it meets those requirements for all of these points along the life cycle. Having rich data and structured data really allows you to do that upfront. Having rich data and structured data really allows you to do that upfront.
So this was another thing about the KYC. And remember that Hyperledger is part of it. So this is what they worked on, because Hyperledger is IBM and they worked with the digital ID.
As an individual, you identify yourself in many ways: your name, address, age, profession, and more. You see that identity in many forms: on your driver's license, social security card, birth certificate, work or school badges, insurance cards. These are called identity instruments. Now, think of all the ways you identify yourself with all your different forms of ID, multiplied by all your daily online and offline interactions. Just how much of your personal identifiable information do you control? How much of it is out there, being used without your consent? And how much of it is stored in locations you don't know about? As you think about where your identity is and who has access to it, hackers are constantly prowling honeypots to exploit personal information aggregated into centralized systems of records. Identity theft and data breaches are major threats that compromise who we are, because identity is the fundamental asset of how we interact with each other. And having our identity compromised or stolen creates a tremendous setback for ourselves. So let's rethink how identity solutions transform the way we interact with the world. ID issuing, secure payments, universal patient records, know your customer, and more are all use cases of digital identity that can be embedded in modernized transactions. So, what are the two major drivers for change? First, we all want control over our identity and who we share it with through secure relationships, removing any identity mediators. Second, businesses want to optimize process workflows and decrease costs while remaining relevant in a digital economy. These same businesses also want to innovate on their core strategy. Instead of having to invest in an identity strategy, evolving identity models can offload some of those challenges, which can then be reinvested in building core business value for clients. The end result? Moving control points for identity to the edges of the network, giving more control to people, organizations, and connected devices, where trust cannot be compromised. Blockchain technology accelerates decentralized identity models by providing a web of trust as people, organizations, and connected devices establish and share their own identity created by them and verified by relationships.
DIA digital signature is a secure signature.
So this is so if you think about the whole stuff happened in Ukraine, US Aid made the DIA app, and that's basically how you can use your credentials and how it would work for us here in the near future.
On your smartphone. To generate a DIA digital signature, simply open DIA application and click on DIA digital signature menu and blink your eyes. The image of your face is then verified with a photo in the database. Using such digital signature, people are able to sign contracts and open bank accounts online. The application is storing all signing history. Your digital signature is simply in your pocket.
So did you see that? So basically what's happening is this. So right here.
Photo in the database. Using such digital signature, people are...
So what's happening is that this person is signing a document online, but is using their phone because their phone is registered with all their data, exactly how like we have a chip in our ledgers. It's the same thing will be implemented in the phone, and they use that to verify the documentation no matter where they go.
Able to sign contracts and open bank accounts.
See, so this person is signing this contract via a QR code and to verify it. So basically all the information is there. So before, how you used to fill out applications, you won't have to do that no more. You just go into an institution, you scan the QR code, and that data will be timely, meaning that it's only there for the moment that you're getting the service. But besides that, they don't really have access to your stuff. So it's bringing security and control over your personal identity and your documents into your hands.
Online. The application is storing all signing history. Your digital signature is simply in your pocket.
And that, folks, right there is the movie. A whole new world.
Returning to gold standard help the U.S. economy? What can you talk a little about your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say I don't see it so much as returning, but more of a back to the future.
Okay.
I think that what a gold standard stands for is monetary discipline for its own sake. That is, if money is supposed to be a unit of account and a reliable measure and a dependable store of value, it really shouldn't be subject to who's the chairman of the Federal Reserve. And I think that money needs to be stable and provide the foundation for productive economic growth. And when money is just a variable that financial markets toss around, or it's part of a derivatives formula, or it's part of someone speculating on currencies, it's not serving the private sector in the sense of providing that reliable unit of account so you can make plans. And under a gold standard, you did have that stability, and I think that's what's missing. And so I like the idea of a gold standard. I mean, it could be used in a very cryptocurrency way. The point is, do you have a unified money system so that when you talk about the international marketplace, everyone is playing on a level monetary playing field? And it's very important to have a rules-based approach. And that's why I'm advocating that we need to look at the virtues of a gold standard and try to come up with something much closer to matching those. And then I think we would have more solid economic growth.
So do you guys get it?
Good afternoon.
What's happening? So what's happening is before, right now, so currently we have an inflation of 2%. So every year we lose purchasing power. But with the system that we're going into to this new one is that our purchasing power will only increase over time. And that's due to the supply and demand of digital assets. And second, because of the liquidity that, precious metals and commodities and basket of commodities provide. So over time, people will get wealthier and not poor, which enables prosperity, which allows people to innovate more and have a better, prosperous life, which again results in less crime and more innovation and a better society altogether.
Everybody, welcome to Columbia. Welcome to the School of International and Public Affairs. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Trish Mosser. I am the director of the MPA program in Economic Policy Management and the Initiative on Central Banking and Financial Policy. We have a real treat this afternoon, the opportunity to hear from one of the most respected and experienced central bankers on the planet, and just a week after he has stepped down from office. We're absolutely delighted that Governor Kuroda is visiting Columbia this entire week, and he's kicking off his visit with this talk. The topic of his remarks is going to be the international monetary system, something that he knows just a little bit about. Haruhiko Kuroda was the governor of the Bank of Japan from March of 2013 until literally 10 days ago. For the 8 years before he became governor, he served as the president of the Asian Development Bank. He also had a long and very distinguished career at Japan's Ministry of Finance, ultimately serving as the vice minister for international affairs. In short, he's no stranger at all to the inner workings and to the shortcomings of the international monetary system.
The current international monetary system is likely to continue for some time. However, we might see three possible evolutions of international monetary system in the future as follows. The first possibility is a fragmentation of the international monetary system. The world economy has already become somewhat fragmented since China strengthened its military presence in the South China Sea and Russia invaded Ukraine. Recent G20 meetings regarding international economic issues showed a division of the 20 members into three groups. Group A consisting of China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia, interestingly. Group B consisting of G7, the European Union, and Australia. And Group C consisting of other countries like Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, Korea, Indonesia, India, Turkey, and South Africa, what we call Global South. Group B countries are imposing strict economic sanctions on Russia, including expulsion from SWIFT and strict regulations over IT goods and technology export to China. Group B countries intend to promote friendshoring instead of indiscriminate offshoring to Group A countries, while the US, the European Union, and Japan intend to restart onshoring of semiconductors and high-tech production. China has started using renminbi for oil imports from Russia and Saudi Arabia, and is spreading RMB transactions to Asia and Africa. Group A countries are exiting from Group B currencies, in particular the US dollar. The use of the euro in Eastern Europe and North Africa is increasing. If fragmentation of the world economy continues, the international monetary system might also become fragmented. With fragmentation of the international monetary system, trade restrictions, and exchange instability, the situation may look increasingly similar to the situation between World War I and World War II. Second possibility is a multiple currency system with CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. By the 2030s, many important economies may introduce CBDCs, which might be freely used for cross-border transactions. Then, currencies like the dollar, euro, pound, yen, and even the RMB, and so on, might be easily sent and exchanged without much cost and time, making them all international currencies. This will likely reduce exchange risks for countries with multiple international currency holdings. As advanced AI technologies make translation easy and costless, reducing the need for one single international language, English, CBDC advanced technologies may make international transactions easy and costless, reducing the need for one single international currency, the dollar, resulting in the negation of Kindleberger's dictum. Of course, it may be argued that such a multiple currency system might be inherently unstable, as Gresham's law predicts. However, the gold pound standard was successfully managed by the Bank of England for more than 40 years until World War I, although the gold dollar standard lasted only 25 years. Above all, as Milton Friedman clarified, Gresham's law is valid only when the exchange rates between currencies are fixed, which is not the case now. The third final possibility is an SDR-centered international monetary system. The SDR was created by the IMF charter change in 1969 to complement the dollar as an international reserve asset. But after 1971, not much has been allocated. Then suddenly in 2022, SDR 456 billion was allocated, equivalent to about $650 billion, which is more than double the total SDRs allocated so far. At the same time, developed countries have agreed to channel allocated SDR to PRGT, RST, and other IMF facilities, and they may also supply SDR to designated holders like multilateral development banks, including the World Bank. In this way, the IMF and the MDBs may, through the lending of SDR to developing countries, realize seigniorage from SDR allocations. SDR has already been an accounting unit for many international organizations, including the United Nations and its agencies, MDBs, and also BIS. SDRs are now available as asset, not only to IMF members, but also to the IMF itself and MDBs. So, the SDR has become a unit of account, means of payment, and value storage for many international institutions. Of course, at this moment, the IMF says the SDR is not a currency, but it is very close to a currency. If SDR designated holders include commercial banks, it will become a currency. Therefore, if IMF members agree to make the SDR a currency and put it at the center of the international monetary system with flexible SDR allocations, we may have an SDR-centered international monetary system with floating exchange rates. Although this is unlikely to be realized in the near future, it might also make the IMF a clearing union based on SDR, as dreamed by John Maynard Keynes.
So the IMF becomes a clearing union.
XRP Ledger is, world-leading public blockchain, which is built for payments and issuing currencies. So it's a natural fit for CBDCs. We've taken that and basically providing a private version of that for the central banks. Something that's going to be absolutely critical for the success of CBDCs and the adoption of them is the relationship between the public sector and the private sector. As I mentioned earlier, we view that the public sector, the central banks working with the government, will be the designers, the rule setters in terms of policy, and the implementers of the platform for the core capabilities around wholesale and retail CBDC, but that the use cases have come from the private sector. The list just goes on and on and on. There's literally endless potential use cases.
Finance is always moving. But is it really moving forward? Or is it just stuck in the same old cycle? Crypto solutions are transforming finance, making it faster and more efficient than we ever thought possible, moving us all into a dynamic new era. Ripple, crypto means business.
There it is, guys. There it is. So I hope this helped you understand where the world is moving and how it all connects. Check out my other videos. It explains more about the new innovations that are going to come out with VTOLs and how that system will work and how things will be charged, and how basically we're moving into a world where technology and everything else is actually a tool that helps us live a better life rather than being something that's scary. So future's looking bright. I'm actually really excited. The things that are going to happen, they're going to happen, and they happen for a reason. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a level playing field, and now you know why people say that. So I hope this helped everybody. Yeah.